In this second video on atheism or atheists, let's look at possibly different subcategories or types of atheists that you might encounter out there. Most of them probably don't like the term atheist, as I had mentioned in the previous video, because it's a term that's come up by the theists as a derogatory term. But let's put that aside for a minute and then look at what could be the subcategories, just as there are many subcategories within the fake religions. The first category is probably the only group that I would say embraces the term atheist, and I will call these militant atheists. I'd said before that the atheists necessarily weren't against anything, but this group probably tend to be anti-religion, anti-God. They come out as stomping against it, and they're the sparring partners of the militant theists. You know, the evangelists on one side and the militant atheists on the other type. So this is one subgroup, if you don't want to put it, you can put it that way, what I call the militant atheists. Probably the largest group would be really what are classified as the agnostics. The agnostics, yes, they're a subdivision of the atheists. They're the ones that question. And, you know, they're not really sure. Perhaps the best definition of the agnostic, though, would be to look at the example that was provided by Bertrand Russell. He said, let's hypothesize that somewhere between here and Mars, orbiting the sun, is a teapot. Now, you can't see this teapot. It's very small. Even with our greatest telescopes, we're not going to be able to detect the teapot. But there are those that firmly and vehemently say that this teapot is there. Bertrand Russell says he's rather agnostic about that. Yes, there's no way to prove that that teapot is there. And there's also no way to prove that the Easter Bunny or the Tooth Fairy or Christ or the devil or Yahweh or anybody else is there either. What Bertrand Russell says, it's not up to me to believe it. It's up to you to prove it to me. Yes, I cannot deny that there's no teapot up there, but from my perspective, the truth of that happening, of being that way, is very slight, almost to the point of inconsequentialness to me. That's really a good definition of what an agnostic is, and the agnostic/atheist. Probably a lot of people fall into that category. The third group are those that are absolute atheists. Just God does not exist, gods do not exist, I don't accept anything supernatural, give me the facts, you know, that approach. Really, I can pull those three categories. Now, the first one would probably like the atheist term because that gets them in an antagonistic fighting mode, and they like that. The other two, the agnostics and the hardcore, you know, people that's saying absolutely there is no God. People from those categories might better be defined as existential humanists. You can scoop them up into that. A much better term, a term that might require a little more explanation to people, but a much better term than the antagonistic atheist, which they are probably mislabeled, or the label really shouldn't be applied to them. So let's get rid of the term atheist when it applies to a lot of people except those militant types, and let's start using the term existential humanism or existential humanist for the majority of people who may formally be called atheists.